Hey, everybody, it's Amy Riccardi from Leadership Evolution Group. I'm really excited to be here today. So, I thought I'd answer a question that I just got asked this morning, which was a really great one. And I wanted just to read this to you. Is how do we go about doing a staff evaluation of our leadership team? And I thought it was a really great question. And I have kind of a couple of different answers to that question. Number one, um, it's always really great when you want to do and get any kind of feedback from your employees, from your leadership team, from if you're an association, maybe your membership, or from your stakeholders, from clients or customers, to really understand what you want to be able to do on the back end with that data. What are the key questions that you want to be able to answer? Because that's really going to help you decide what questions to ask, who to ask, and how to ask them, and really provide some really great context for what you're trying to get at and what you're trying to get to. So in this case, it was an association asking about having staff evaluate the leadership team, and the ask was coming from the board of directors, which is a fascinating question, right? And so my response was, okay, well, what is the board really trying to get at? And there's a couple of different ways that you could approach getting that feedback. And so I wanted to provide that to you today. So it hopefully will provide some value to you. So one is that you could just go and do an employee engagement survey, right? Which is going to give you feedback not only about how your leadership is perceived by your staff, but also how the staff is engaged with the organization on a bunch of different levels. And our tool that we use lets us look at how engaged an individual is and how engaged they are with their career, how engaged that individual feels the organization's members are, or customers or clients, how engaged that person feels their coworkers are, how engaged they feel the direct supervisor is, how engaged the leadership is perceived, and how engaged the organization is with their purpose. Right. So those are some great ways great questions and buckets of domains that you can ask questions around. If you're trying to get general employee engagement feedback, all of it's super useful. That's actually our base and our core employee engagement survey that we suggest organizations run quarterly or at least 3 times a year. And then they use that data in a dashboard to help drive engagement in organizations. So those are the 6 realms that we measure on a regular basis. But another approach you could take is if you're trying to just get feedback from employees on how engaged leadership is, you actually want to be able to measure 2 pieces of this. Number one, you want to understand where the leadership team thinks they are with regards to engagement, and then how employees perceive leaders to be engaged, and look at that gap. We call that the leadership perception gap. And that is a really fantastic assessment to run, because it's going to give you a lot of interesting feedback about the perception between where leaders think they are, where employees think the leaders are, and whether or not there's a gap in between. And that's a great and super valuable assessment. And then we actually run that around what we call the 7 C's. So we take a look at how leaders are evaluated on courageousness, credibility, confidence, connectedness, consistency, caring, and commitment. So those are the 7 C's around the leadership perception gap. A third way you could look at that evaluation is to create a competency-based leadership assessment. And we've done this as well. And I think this is really useful too. And we've done this in cases where an organization's leadership team has some real identified strengths and gaps. And we want to be able to identify where they are. And we want to look at the results of this over time so that we can see if there's improvements over time. And so some of those in this case might be relationship building and accountability, communication and conflict management, collaborative team leadership, creativity and innovation, problem solving and initiative, and vision and strategic thinking. And you could break apart any one of those, add to any of these questions or buckets or whatever you want to do. But I think these are three distinct ways to take a look at evaluating performance and grabbing feedback and employee engagement feedback in a bunch of different ways. And you've got to be really clear about what the end goal is in mind in order to be able to craft the right kind of feedback tool for any organization, frankly. So again, there's kind of this employee engagement feedback piece, which is looking at overall where everybody thinks they are. And you can look at that and divide and slice that up by any kind of demographic scenario you want, by teams, by location, by geography, length of service in an organization. There's lots of demographics you could slice and dice any of these by the way. A leadership perception gap. So you measure where leaders think they are, where the employees think they are, and what the gap is in the middle. Or thirdly, you could look at something like a competency-based model where you're taking a look at some core competencies across there's thousands to be had there. These are the ones I went through earlier, the ones that we tend to look at for organizations, but you can customize those based on strengths or gaps that your leaders may have and measure them over time. So I wanted just to provide that as a bit of a feedback opportunity for this question, because it's a great one. And a lot of organizations are looking at engagement right now and are trying to figure out, hey, what do we do with this and how do we get valuable feedback? But you've got to think about it with the end in mind first, and that's going to get you the best results. If we can help you out at all, you can grab us and you can book a complimentary call on our website. In the top right corner, there's a book a complimentary meeting. You can book some time with me and be happy to sit down and talk to you about it at leadershipevolutiongroup.com. Thanks so much and have a great day.